Hello, welcome to the Roundrockville Tales YouTube channel. I'm Whatever Trevor, the author of A Roundrockville Tale. Today is the last reading from the book. I will read the final chapter, and I thank you for joining me. And if you've joined me this far, then let's get it over with. Page 133. Chapter 20, The Grand Opening. Sir Reginald Roundbottom the Second, the Mayor of Roundrockville, proudly gave a speech.
It is my honor to welcome you to the grand opening of the new Roundrockville Bridge.
Behind the mayor, a marvel of design and engineering, the seemingly random stones fit together tightly with minimal mortar. A wide cobblestone arch walkway lined with stone sidewalls spanned the hot spring and garden. A ceremonial ribbon draped between the two sidewalls. The mayor held out an enormous set of scissors.
Slate, would you like to do the honors?
The crowd applauded and cheered.
Good job, Slate. Looks great. Woo, Slate.
Slate stepped up to the bridge he designed and helped build, and pride swelled in his heart.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so diddly blessed. I want to thank Bedrock and all of you for trusting in me. It was my honor to design this bridge, but it was Bold, Roundy, Lumpy, and me that built it. This bridge,
Slate gestured to the bridge,
was a group effort, and I think,
Slate pointed to the crowd,
Bold, Lumpy, and Roundy, get up here.
The crowd separated, and the construction crew moved towards the bridge.
And remember that bedrock awful diddly gate was all Roundy's doing.
The crowd laughed and applauded as the crew of rocks gathered. Holding the enormous scissors together, Bold used his best boss voice for effect. All right, rocks, on three. 1, 2, 3. The enormous scissor blades cut the ribbon. The stone arch bridge officially opened for crossing. The crowd cheered as the ribbon fell, draping the parapets and the ground. Roundy led the first crossing of the bridge. The other rocks followed. The smell of fresh dried mortar and the diminished yet distinctive smell of sulfur from the hot spring in the air. The solid built bridge had no further settling sounds, with the mass of all the rocks crossing. Double doors filled a massive arched frame. The gate was functional, formidable, and extravagantly hand-carved. It smelled of sweet redwood and varnish. Roundy swung back a large locking clasp on the gate. Shh, click, clink. The mechanism was smooth and sturdy. Roundy swung the gates open. Swoosh. The round rocks of Roundrockville rolled down the bridge through the gate and past the border of the broken glass fence. For many of the round rocks, it was the first time they had left Roundrockville. The 4 previously displaced pieces of glass fence found new homes, reconnecting the fence to the new bridge and gate. The gap had been effectively sealed and secured. The shards of glass, the stone arch bridge, and the redwood gate combined for a secure and exquisite entrance to Roundrockville.
Freedom!
Stoney yelled and spun around with his arms out.
Beautiful freedom! Woohoo!
Other rocks joined.
Woohoo!
Lumpy stood at the apex of the bridge and looked back at Roundrockville, his mind blank but his heart full. I love Roundrockville. Crystal Quartz grabbed Lumpy by his arm.
Come on, silly.
and pulled Lumpy down the bridge through the gate. Sylvia stopped at the threshold and examined the gate as an excuse. She was reluctant to set foot outside of Roundrockville. Slate, sensing her uneasiness, stayed with her. The gate warranted closer examination. The gate's thick redwood frame featured a border of vines, leaves, and flowers fading into waves, splashes, and drops of water along the bottom. Clouds, stars, and a full moon adorn the top of the arch on one side. On the other side of the top, a bright sun refracted twin rainbows through a shard of glass. Sylvia ran her hand along the carvings. They were smooth and detailed. "This is some beautiful work." She looked back at Slate. "Don't you dare tell Roundy I said that." Slate gave her an innocent schoolboy look. "Of course not. His head is big diddly enough." Pebbles Pebbleton rolled back and forth over the bridge. She stopped, looked up at Slate. "You build a good bridge, Mr. Slanders. I love it." She turned and rolled back up the bridge. Whee! The smell of barbecue led the rocks back across the bridge into Roundrockville. Esmeralda rang a dinner bell. Ding, ding, ding. "Showdown. Every rock for themselves." She took over for Brick behind the grill. Brick hugged Esmeralda and handed over his apron. "Thank you. Here I go. Wish me luck," Esmeralda encouraged Brick. "Knock 'em dead, sonny." Beside the barbecue pit and serving table was a stage. Brick took his place on stage behind his drum kit. Lumpy stood ready with his bass, and Rocky's head was down as he fiddled with his guitar. Out front, Rockzilla had her back to the crowd, looking at the band. She stepped towards Brick, waved Rocky and Lumpy in. They gathered around the drums. Brick stood up. They leaned in, touching foreheads in a circle. "Are you ready for this?" Rockzilla inquired. Lumpy turned to Rockzilla. "This is the best part." Rocky strummed his guitar. "I was born for this." Brick held his drumsticks up. "Yeah!" Stuck out his tongue. "Ah!" "Let's do it." Rockzilla turned and walked to the front of the stage. "Are you ready to rock?" She released her voice. The entire crowd of rocks stopped and turned, eyes wide, mouths agape. They had no idea. "We are Avalanche!" The residents of Roundrockville stopped chewing their food, chit-chatting and moving. They stood like a crowd of statues looking at Rockzilla. "I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Ba-da-da-bop-bop. Do-ba-da-ba-doo." The band joined in. The crowd cheered and began to dance. Bold and Delilah danced close together. Grace and Grant showed off their swing dancing. Stony, Crystal, and Pebbles grooved at the front of the stage. The rocks danced, ate, and laughed. The only rocks not dancing were Sylvia and Slate. They sat enjoying the barbecue. When Slate got up to get another plate, Roundy swooped in. He knew his friends. He knew they might need a little nudge. Roundy grabbed Sylvia's arm and swung her onto the dance floor. He kindly held her hostage. Roundy danced, swinging Sylvia around while she gave him an evil eye. Just as Roundy planned, Slate quickly cut in, pushing Roundy away in a gallant effort. Slate looked in Sylvia's eyes and started to dance. Sylvia instantly loosened up, melted into Slate, and began to dance. Roundy confidently jived past them. "You're welcome. About time." Roundy was happy for his friends. But dow, dow, dow. The band Avalanche stopped playing.
"Thank you so much. I hope you're having as much fun as I am."
Roxilla turned around, saw the smiles on Lumpy, Brick, and Rocky's faces.
"As much fun as we're having. Woo! We're going to take a break."
Bold pulled Lumpy aside. "There's one last job. Did you make it as I asked you?" Lumpy: "Sure did. Let's go." Bold and Lumpy crossed the bridge. The sounds of the celebration diminished as they walked out to the giant boulder. There they erected a sign pointing the way through the passage to Roundrockville. Bold shook the signpost, making sure it would withstand the weather. "Looks good. That ain't going nowhere. Well done, Linus." Lumpy looked at the sign, then looked off into the direction that he had wandered. He remembered that curious little rock that chased the moonbeams. Lumpy was a little conflicted. He was grateful for all the experiences, but remembered being that lost, scared little rock. Lumpy looked back towards Roundrockville. "Nobody will ever get lost here again." A weight lifted from his heart. He breathed a little easier and stood a little taller. Respectfully, Bold acknowledged Lumpy. "I'm glad you found your way home. It is an honor to have you in my crew." Lumpy's eyes welled up a bit. "It's a pleasure to work beside you as well, my worthy friend." He joked away the tears and widened his smile. Bold gave Lumpy a side shoulder-to-shoulder bro hug. "Let's go home, Lumps." Epilogue. Open for business. The sign to the hidden passage by the giant boulder led new rocks to Roundrockville. Rocks and stones of all shapes, sizes, and colors began to visit. The hot spring was particularly popular. Not all the round rocks of Roundrockville were happy about that. Some rocks wanted to remove the sign and lock the gate. The funny thing about change is that it happens whether you like it or not. One resident, Sapphire Sparkly, embraced the new rocks and the tourism industry. The Roundrockville Hot Spring and Resort was built. Bold Boulder and his crew were happy to do the building. Slate Slanders recruited Roundy McRoundface to help design the resort. Delilah McDiamond came out of her shell as the new server in the dining room of the Emerald Tea Room. Sphere Spirison moved to New Rock City, the center of the fashion world. She became known as the world's most beautiful rock, traveling the globe, rolling down red carpets in Lundrock, Amsterdam, Venice, and Paris. Stony Stonerson, encouraged by Lumpy's stories, traveled to mystical places in the world. He studied with wise rocks, guru priests, and grand masters. Roxilla Rockstar, Rocky Rockbottom, and Brickenstein's band Avalanche became an overnight sensation. They toured around the world, minus the original bass player. Lumpy had enough touring in his life and stayed home in Roundrockville. Esmeralda Emerald welcomed Samuel S. Sandstone, who became the new head cook at the Emerald Tea Room. Meanwhile, Barbara Brickenstein stepped up to be the head gardener. Mayor Sir Reginald Roundbottom the Second split the additional maintenance and farming duties with Dr. Grace Garnett joked that nurses do most of the healthcare work anyway, and started to develop farmer jokes. Sir Reginald Roundbottom the Third, aka Reggie, exhausted all of Esmerald's stories about Roundrockville, eventually publishing several biographies, including The History of Roundrockville and The Story of Linus L. Limestone. Reggie's father couldn't have been prouder. Crystal Quartz and Lumpy hosted dinner parties. At one dinner, Lumpy and Sheriff Stonerock found they shared an interest in martial arts. Lumpy taught Rockstone ancient self-defense techniques he learned from Shaolin Kung Fu master named Kanite in Tibrick. After a proper romantic courtship, Slate Slanders asked Sylvia Stonemeyer for her hand in marriage. She said, "Yes, Billy, yes!" Roundy McRoundface was the best man at the wedding. More importantly, he was in charge of the bachelor party. Avalanche came home to play at the wedding. The original residents of Roundrockville danced with new residents, and it was a splendid celebration. Every morning, Lumpy continued to meet Pebbleton, who persisted on asking questions like, "Lumpy, where do rocks come from?" But those are stories for another time. The end. Thank you. That's it. I got through it. Now, I thank you very much if you sticked with me. I know that there is still editing mistakes, and I struggled with some of the readings. I struggled with some of the words. I struggled with words that I invented, but all of those struggles make me stronger. They all made me a better reader, and in the end, it all made me a better writer. Thank you very much for coming along this journey with me. I know if you're a big reader, you're probably used to a more polished product, and the truth is that there isn't nobody that writes a really good book their first time out, but this was a pretty good book, and I'm proud of my efforts writing this book and reading this book, and I thank you very much for joining me on the Roundrockville Tales YouTube channel. And you never know, this might not be the last video on this channel. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you soon.